Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Read Step. I am your host, Isaiah Ruiz, and today we're going to get into an episode discussing one topic. It's going to be one of the games that happened over this past weekend. It's kind of really, arguably, the biggest topic of the week so far before we head into week two, which is Alabama versus Florida State. Alabama lost this game 17-31 in a blowout of an upset. And yes, 17-31 for Alabama, especially coming into this year where there was a lot of expectations. I picked them as one of the teams to go to the national championship and win the SEC, or at least be right there in contention with both of those big games. And boy, oh boy, was I ever so wrong. I will admit that. I'll be the first to admit that. That's one of the things that we're gonna get into on this channel. And what I mean by that is, I'm very one. I like to give. I like to give my takes. I like to give my opinions. That's what I'm going to be doing. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll admit to it. I'll own up to it. But Alabama showed that they are not really capable of going out and winning anything of significance this year. I was a little bit wrong about Ty Simpson as well. He definitely struggled, as well as many quarterbacks, apparently, unless you're Tommy Castellanos and Garrett Musmeyer. But we're not talking about LSU today. We're talking about FSU. We're talking about Alabama. But more specifically, we're going to talk about Alabama. And I gotta say, I'm gonna go through the numbers briefly, really quick. I'm gonna go through the numbers, and then I'm gonna get into like really the main point of what I'm trying to say, the main point of my message here today, and what I just find so alarming. Let me go through the numbers really quick. So Ty Simpson was 23 of 43, not very good at all. 254 yards. He had 2 touchdowns with a QBR of 48.6. Alabama rushing was Kevin Riley, 5 carries for 31 yards. Richard Young, 9 carries for 26 yards. Ty Simpson had 17 yards on the ground. And as we all know, Jam Miller, he's not going to be playing because he's injured right now. I already mentioned Jeremy Bernard. He was at 8 catches, 146 yards. Ryan Williams wasn't really much of a factor. He only had 5 catches for 36 yards. I want to get this right. Let's go to tackles here, because we're going to talk about the difference. Actually, I take that back. There actually is surprisingly not much of a difference between the two teams, but there is something that is quite alarming when it comes to Alabama. And again, we're going to get into that right now. No interceptions for the defense, and we're going to talk a lot, especially about the defense today. But those are the numbers really for as far as some of the main players for Alabama in this game. I feel like those numbers aren't even really derivative of how the game really went. If you saw the game with your eyes, you know that it was even it was significantly worse than what this says. A 48.6 QBR is I would even say, based off just what I had seen, it just felt like it was much worse than 48.6, and 48.6 QBR for Ty Simpson is not. That already is not even a good QBR. Really quick, I'm going to go over to Florida State. Tommy Castellanos, 9 for 14. He attempted less than 15 passing attempts, mind you, with 152 yards passing. He was averaging 11 yards per completion with an 83.6 QBR, so a much better QBR than Ty Simpson. And the fact that they were able to win this game so dominantly, without him having to even throw 15 passes, that goes to show you what we're going to get into today. But he did lead in rushing. He had 16 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Tommy Castellanos is not just a thrower of the football. He's an elite runner of the football as well, at least at the college level. He has been throughout his career when he was at Boston College, like I mentioned in the last video, giving Florida State some problems themselves. And now he's on Florida State, and he's doing his thing, and it's one hell of a way to make a statement in your opening debut for the Florida State Seminoles, a team that for the past couple of years, actually no, for the last year, obviously kind of took a really big dip. They kind of quit in a way, just as a program last year. They just kind of shut down. Similar start to Alabama. Literally, actually, what happened to Alabama today? If it continues to go this way for Alabama, they're going to just be FSU from last year. But he makes his debut for Florida State as Ty Simpson makes his debut for Alabama. And Tommy Castellanos proved that this is not just going to be another year of irrelevance for Florida State. I think they're going to be really good. And I think they set the tone and set the attitude going forward with Tommy as their starting quarterback. And he played tremendously. I don't want to take any of the flowers away from him. He deserves a lot of the credit led in rushing, had the touchdown, and really has he's literally just changed this whole dynamic of Florida State around just by in one game. So I wish him nothing but the best, and I wish Florida State nothing but the best. They definitely deserve it. I was on them a little bit last year, and I was on them a little bit about last year because of what happened 2 years ago. And I mentioned that, by the way. Speaking of 2 years ago, I mentioned that Florida State, Norvell, he obviously was very. I think that he definitely remembered this game, he circled this game more than any other game on this calendar year because he remembers he was there when Florida State got picked outside of the college football playoff and Alabama was being put in. Again, not going to get too much into it. I think Alabama deserved to get in at that time in 2023, but this year is a lot different. Norvell remembered that, and he wanted to go out and prove that in a way, I mean, again, it's 2 years removed, but in a way that Florida State should have been in there, and he took this one personally. And it seems like even though a lot of these guys who are on this team right now, especially obviously with Tommy being so new here, they in a way they wanted to show up and show out for that team a couple of years ago. And really, as I mentioned in the other video, and I don't really ever swear on this program a lot, but the best way I could describe it from what I had seen from Florida State was knocking Alabama's dick in the dirt. Smash mouth, just absolutely brutal football from offensively and defensively, and punked the Alabama Crimson Tide. You have Mekhi Danzy. He had three carries for 56 yards, and he had a touchdown himself. Gavin Sawchuk, I believe that is the former running back for the Oklahoma Sooners, my Oklahoma Sooners. 6 carries, 28 yards. He had a touchdown. So running as a team, they ran for 230 yards, 4 total touchdowns. Keziah Holmes had a touchdown. So obviously, when you have a team that's going to run for over 200 yards on you and have 4 rushing touchdowns, that tells you all you. And the game of football, that tells you all you need to know. That tells you that you punked the opposing team. You punked the opposing team at the line of scrimmage. You punked the opposing team on the front 7, and you just absolutely dominated and physically imposed yourself against the opposition. It's one thing I understand that in football in this generation, whether it be Pee Wee football, whether it be high school football, college football, the NFL, it's a very pass-centric sport nowadays, much more than it was many years ago. But still, to the one thing that cannot be, anybody who knows ball, and it doesn't take you a brain surgeon or somebody who played to know ball. Anybody knows when you rush for over 200 yards and you have 4 touchdowns on the ground, especially against a team like Alabama that has a reputation for what it was for so many years, that is a very jarring number. And that should tell you, there's not many stats that I would say on a box score that I think should tell you about that what I would say should tell you without watching the game. Oh yeah, that's what happened. But when it comes to rushing and running the football, that's what we call football. That's man to man. Your offensive line versus their defensive line. Your fullbacks, your running backs versus the linebackers. We're gonna see who wins, and we're gonna go mano y mano, and we're gonna see who has the stronger will, and we're gonna see who gets their ass kicked. That's exactly what it comes down to when it comes to going into the trenches. Your will against your opposition's will, and we're going to see who is the better man on top. And when you can run the ball like that, especially against a team like Alabama, it just really never heard of. It was never heard of. Again, we're going to get into this in a shortly, but I just wanted to point that out. Tommy Castellanos and a lot of these other running backs for Florida State, they sent a message on Saturday afternoon that for one, they weren't going to be pushed around anymore. 2, this is not going to be a year that they quit and they just kind of leave off to the side and completely, because Norvell's job was actually being kind of looked into question after last year as well. Obviously, the year before that, I think lost 1 or 2 games, but then last year, it just seemed like the program in general just kind of fell apart. This year, he needed that win, as well as Kalen DeBoer, but Norvell needed that win, the program needed that win, Castellanos needed that win. Overall, it was a great game for the Florida State Seminoles, and they showed up and showed out, and they played smash mouth football, physically, very out physicaled by a long shot, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Again, offensively in the trenches, and most definitely defensively. If you're watching some of those hits and some of those tackles from the Florida State Seminole defense, they went out and they were punishing Alabama. It was something that I really hadn't seen in a long time, and had me very shook in a way by the standards that I had seen with the Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide for so many years since I was in the 6th grade. Receiving wise, 152 receiving yards in total from the entire receiving core. So nothing really crazy there. No touchdowns. All of the touchdowns for the Seminoles were all on the ground. Um, there was obviously there was also I believe there was a forced fumble or there was a turnover by Ty Simpson. There was also some turnovers for Florida State as well. As far as sacks, the Seminoles had 3 sacks. Again, that's where it comes into play, dominating the line of scrimmage and the defensive line and the front seven. Everybody on the defensive side of the ball, really, for FSU dominated the offensive line and the offense really entirely of Alabama. And again, that is something you would probably have never had heard of, as at least with Nick Saban having if Nick Saban was there. So everything in general was just very. I couldn't believe what I saw. A lot of people couldn't believe what they saw. Paul Feinbaum, a huge supporter, obviously, of the SEC. He would probably agree with everything I had to say. Just absolutely incredible. 7 tackles for loss, by the way, for the Seminoles, only 3 for Alabama. Now, what I wanted to get into, one of the big purposes of this episode that I'm doing, of this video that I'm doing. It's not going to be a very long video, but I did want to talk about this because it's something that everybody's talking about. Everybody in the news media, everybody in the major media. What I saw with Alabama and Florida State, I was at work watching it. I came back home. I was able to watch the end of it here, right behind me in the living room to watch it. But I was able to watch. Apart from the fact that I was shocked at what I was seeing, it was the way that Alabama lost. Alabama did not lose because of a lack of. No, actually, no, sorry. Alabama did not lose because both teams were going at it back and forth, back and forth. Alabama is proving to be the type of team that a lot of people have picked them to be, and FSU came up and they were going bar for bar, punch for punch. No, I was gonna say it wasn't because of a lack of trying, but no, it was because of a lack of trying. We all seen, and if you haven't, I'll try to put the video up. There's been a lot of there's been one piece of video when it comes to Alabama that really shows like where this team is at as a program as opposed to where it was with Nick Saban. And there was 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama as who is number 19. I'm sorry, so sorry. He was Danzy. When Danzy went to go score that touchdown, there were 2 guys that were literally jogging on the Alabama defense. Jogging. They were now whether or not you think I played football for 8 years. Never at the Division I college level. I played 4 years in high school, a couple years before high school, and I played a couple years at the junior college level. But I can't say, especially at the junior college level, I was being coached by tremendous coaches, guys that have actually went to go play at the D1 level, guys that played in the NFL, some of them that even played in the NFL. I could tell you, no coach that will ever say you might really be. You could be out of we'll call it out of play, where somebody's on the opposite end of the field, and it looks like you're too far, whatever the case may be. And even though you might not get to that player, one thing that every great coach coaches you to do, and I've just seen so many different videos of Nick Saban at practice, Nick Saban during games, Nick Saban in interviews. One thing that he would not put up with is a lack of effort, and you shouldn't. Lack of effort. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest or you're the smallest. Lack of effort is 1,000% in control as a football player, as an athlete, as a worker, as everything and anything in life. Effort is something that you can control 100%. If you're that linebacker that was jogging to Danzy, trying to get to him as he was on his way to go score a touchdown, I think Nick Saban sees that and he goes and he takes away that scholarship that either that day or the very next day. You also have the safety there, which was even honestly, I think the one with the safety was even more jarring, even more. When I was looking through it and I was looking through the clip of this, the safety was actually the one that got really close, put a hand out and totally whipped on the tackle. That is unacceptable, mind you. I grew up when around 6th grade started in 2009. That was when Nick Saban was there, and they go and they play Texas in the national championship game. But you knew that there was a new dawn to be had, and there was going to be the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were going to be there, and they were going to be there to stay. Some of the names that you guys may have forgotten. You had a Courtney Upshaw, Mark Barron, Marcel Darius. I feel like I'm forgetting so many other players. There was a lot. There was other players as well. One hell of a defense. But those are like a few of the names that maybe some people that are seeing this might remember. Like those teams, there was no lack of effort. There was no lack of heart. There was no lack of smash mouth football. That team quite literally knocked out McCoy. I forget his name, but the Texas quarterback was a national championship game. They literally knocked the quarterback for Texas, McCoy, out of the game in the national title game. They go on and they win that, and everything is history from 2009 to 2023, a couple of years ago when they played Michigan in the Rose Bowl. The last time Alabama won a national title was 2020. So it's been 5 years since they won a national title, but with Nick Saban, they were still in the hunt. They were still always obviously involved. Last year, Kalen DeBoer comes into play to fill the shoes of Nick Saban, which are unfillable. And not only does he have a subpar year after leading his Washington Huskies to the national championship in 2023, but he totally just wets the bed. I understand that maybe in your first year you might not go and you might not win the national championship, but the fact that you missed the playoffs in a 12-team playoff format as the coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide was a huge red flag at the end of the year. Already Alabama fans were calling for his job. I'm sure some were, and rightfully so. But it was the first year. You come into this game and you're playing Florida State, a team that, like I mentioned, quit last year completely as a program. They obviously are playing with some heart this year. What should have happened, in my opinion, is you play your best. Alabama plays their best. Let's say they play like how everybody thought they were going to do. They were going to go out. Tiny Simpson comes in, and like I had mentioned, as long as he doesn't commit any turnovers, they should be good to go. Let's say they come in and they're the ones that they score 31 points. But maybe Florida State steps up and they score 28 points, or they score 30 points, or they make it back and forth. As long as you do that, but Alabama, you get the win. Kalen DeBoer gets the win. You're still good. It's okay for Florida State with Mike Norvell as the head coach. He comes back in after a year that he had. Everybody's expecting him to obviously up the ante because his job would have been called for also. So everybody would have expected him, if the Florida State Seminoles were to still give Alabama one hell of a fight, then hey, so be it. Then they give one hell of a fight. They go on, have a good year. Alabama goes on and have a good year. And it is what it is. It's a good matchup for both teams. But for Kalen DeBoer to come in this year, you're over here coaching up a defense clearly that did not want to be there, that for whatever the case may be. Maybe they don't like you as a head coach. Maybe they don't like the staff. Maybe they're just not bought into the program. And I think that's the worst part more than anything. Nick Saban had everybody that played for the Alabama Crimson Tide bought into that program. Now you could say, well, there was, majority of that was a time when obviously only Alabama and other teams were paying guys under the table, and NIL and the transfer portal were limited. Like you couldn't transfer out or whatever the case may be. Yes, that's true, but two things can definitely be true. That being true, yes, but also Najee Harris always talks about how he loved going and playing for Nick Saban. Minka Fitzpatrick, he'll tell you how much he loved playing for Nick Saban. Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Devontae Smith. I mean, the C.J. Mosley, everybody, Mark Ingram. I could go from 2009 all the way up to recently in his last year. That when you're bought into a program as a player and you really you'll go through a brick wall for that coach. You don't see the type of effort that they put in on defense, especially the defensive side of the ball, like Alabama showed on Saturday against Florida State. You don't see guys just kind of putting like one hand out, like, oh, like whatever, and then whiffing on the tackle. You don't see guys jogging up to trying to go, and because you think, oh, well, the guy behind me is going to make the tackle. The safety is going to make the tackle. The corner is going to go back and get off his block, and he's going to go and make the tackle. You just don't do that. You don't do that if you got the A on your chest. You got the numbers on the side of your helmet. You don't do that if you play for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Kalen DeBoer, more than anything, is on the hottest of hottest seats. Kalen DeBoer, mind you, we're going to go ahead and go to the schedule. Kalen DeBoer is already 0-1. They got UL Monroe. Let's hope they can beat them. Let's hope they can beat Wisconsin. You're going to Georgia in week 4. I don't even think you're going to beat the Georgia Bulldogs at this point. So that's 2 losses already. You're going to go play Vanderbilt. They obviously want to beat you. They're not going to be scared of you. Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina. I think South Carolina. You tell me. You give me the choice right now. I think South Carolina absolutely blows out Alabama at South Carolina. By the way, LSU they might be. I'm very confident now in my Oklahoma Sooners beating Alabama. So there's a. Oh, and obviously they have the Iron Bowl. They're going to play Auburn. So there's a real possibility here that Kalen DeBoer, you know, if he even makes it through the season, because if he loses to Georgia or Wisconsin or Vanderbilt or even Missouri at Missouri by the middle of the season, he probably might get fired before the season's over. And we're going to get into the potential head coaching candidates for Alabama if that does take place. But my point is, and getting to and taking it even a step further, I think Alabama has officially lost its aura. I think Alabama lost its aura. I think Alabama is no longer a team that people are afraid of. People are no longer scared to play. Manti Te'o, it's funny, Manti Te'o, for anybody that remembers that interview, talked about how what the scene was like from his teammates when they were getting ready to play Alabama. Saw DJ Fluker walking out, his eventual teammate for the Chargers, and what the Notre Dame team saw and how he's, when he mentioned, I look back behind me and everybody, all my teammates' eyes are just wide. There was a fear and there was an aura that came with the Alabama Crimson Tide for many, many years, about 15, 16, 17 years. You knew when you lined up against Alabama, you, A, were probably going to get beat. B, physically, you're probably going to leave or you're probably going to get hurt. C, you just, all hope, any hope you might have had, with the exception of probably very, 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 very few teams throughout those years, like LSU 2019 being one of them. You knew that there was no chance that you were going to walk out with the win against Alabama. It was always just first team, first round draft pick, Heisman Trophy winner, elite running back, elite quarterback, elite receivers, elite offensive line, elite defensive line, elite linebackers, elite corners, safeties. Everything about the Alabama program had literal aura. And I know that's a word that a lot of kids these days like to use, and rightfully so. Alabama had aura, and they came with it came with something. When you played Alabama, you knew you were buckling up to lose that week most likely, and you were probably going to walk out that stadium bruised and beaten the hell up. Nobody, and I mean nobody as of right now, on September 1st of 2025, is going to be seeing Alabama walk across from them, across that field, or across the tunnel, see them coming out. Nobody's going to go and see them and think, oh man, that's Alabama. I don't think we're going to have it. Nobody's going to have those wide eyes anymore. Nobody's going to have any type of doubt in their mind. Nobody's going to feel like they're about to leave that stadium, less physically comfortable than when they walked in. Nobody's scared of Alabama anymore. Nobody's afraid of the A. Nobody's afraid of the elephant. Nobody's afraid of any of that. Alabama has officially lost its aura, and they need to work to get that back, and it might take them a long time. It might take them firing Kalen DeBoer to finally get there. Maybe they go and get somebody else. But right now, Alabama is a very, very, very much a winnable game on everybody's calendar now. I think Florida State winning this game, the fashion that they won this game, they went out and they completely dominated and beat down the Alabama Crimson Tide. And this has been the first time in my life that I think I'm not even just trying to be dramatic. I always mentioned before, like the Ohio State team from 2015 with Ezekiel Elliott. I knew they were going to win the national title when he ran through Alabama, but at that time, there was, I guess, like I mentioned, there were certain games, there were certain teams where, okay, maybe that day they just had Alabama's number, but Alabama was still Alabama. Alabama was still the standard. Alabama was going to still roll in the next season as the number 1 or number 2 team in the country. Now, what I'm trying to say is that Alabama is just a potential check on most of these elite teams on the schedule. South Carolina should have a check, as in, this is a game we think we could definitely win. Tennessee should have Alabama on their board as a check, as a team that we could possibly win. Same thing for Oklahoma, same thing for LSU. Definitely Georgia for sure. And I just don't see how Kalen DeBoer comes and, I'll put it to you this way. The only way Kalen DeBoer takes back and earns his respect back is going undefeated the rest of the year, which I highly doubt, and goes to the SEC championship game, gets a spot in the playoffs, and makes a deep run. I don't see that happening. Could it? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe Florida State whooping them on Saturday in Florida was what it was going to take for them to kind of get kicked in gear. But this was just an absolute. I have never seen anybody run through Alabama the way that I saw Florida State run through them and physically impose their physical dominance on Alabama the way that Florida State did. Not to mention, by the way, you had Tommy Castellanos talking shit before the game, talking to him about Nick can't save you. I will say though, I do like when teams talk smack about their opposing team. As long as for one, like yeah, you have to back it up because otherwise it's kind of corny. But I've always been of the belief it's so much easier to talk smack on somebody when it's after the fact or whatever the case may be. If you can go out and still talk your shit before the game is had or before the fight is had or whatever the case may be, and you can back it up, it's a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for that, and I gained a lot of respect for Florida State and Tommy Castellanos and Norvell, especially after the dominant performance that they had against Alabama. Now, as far as Kalen DeBoer, again, we just talked about it. If he doesn't beat Georgia and he loses to Vanderbilt again by week of Missouri, I think he gets fired. I think he probably gets like the Lane Kiffin firing, gets left at the tarmac. Now, as far as who would be his replacement, I have a couple of names in mind. Some of them that I think there's some names that you guys might have heard, you guys might have thrown around in the media. Nothing really too crazy. One of the first names that comes to mind is John Gruden. I think John Gruden getting back into football, especially what he's been doing on social media and getting all of these different deliveries and boxes to his house and really engaging and being a part of like the football world again, talking to a lot of these quarterbacks coming out of the draft, talking to these quarterbacks coming out of college. I think it's a great thing for him. He's getting back in the good graces of, higher ups, if you want to call it that. But John Gruden seems like he's itching to get back in and start coaching football again. He's a great football mind, great football coach, Super Bowl winning coach. He's been in the league for many, many years, obviously with his last job being with the Raiders. I think Alabama would be something that he can definitely want. I think John Gruden going to Alabama would be one hell of a move, not just for Alabama, but definitely for him. I think it's something I could see him going and recruiting kids. He's a likable guy. He loves the game of football. Truly, there's very few people that I think were born and made and created to love football, and he would say he freaking loves football, man. So John Gruden, I think he would be an excellent head coach candidate for the Alabama Crimson Tide. The other coach, and I'm only going to be talking about two because I think these are the two realistic. I think it's John Gruden, and the other one is former USC head coach, former FAU head coach, current Ole Miss head coach, Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has obviously been a part of this coaching staff before with Nick Saban through the midst of those championship years in the 2010s for a little bit. He's one of the best. He's one of the best, one of the more elite college football minds. He's grown up a lot since he's coached at USC. I remember that very vividly because I believe I was in high school when he was there at USC. And I will say he's somebody who's clearly a lot of players like him. A lot of players like playing for him. Like I mentioned, he loves he also loves. Obviously, he loves coaching. But what I'm trying to say is, I think this is the job coaching, being a head coach for Alabama. I think is the job that he wants the most, more than anything. He went through his rounds a little bit. He did the assistant coaching job at Alabama for those few years. Now he's at Ole Miss. He's doing a tremendous job there. Got Jackson Dart ready, prepared, coached him for 3 years. Ended up being in the first round to the New York Giants this past year, obviously. And he's done a tremendous job as an Ole Miss head coach, really bringing back that program to for sure more relevance than it was before he got there. So I think those would be my candidates. It would be John Gruden number 2, Lane Kiffin number 1. Lane Kiffin's been in college football. He's still in college football, obviously. He is the type of coach where I could see him literally accepting the job tomorrow if he was offered the job. I could see him going and picking up a lot of the drop pieces that Kalen DeBoer has left so far, see him coaching the right way, building up that offense again, especially with Ty Simpson, if Ty Simpson was to stay or if he was to come back, and keeping Ryan Williams in the Alabama program. And again, this is all just kind of speculation. Obviously, if I'm assuming the worst here, if Alabama goes and has a really shitty year and they don't do good, Kalen DeBoer gets fired. Lane Kiffin and John Gruden would be the two guys that I call, but I'm calling Lane Kiffin first, and I'm saying, hey, very, very simple. We want you as our next head coach here at Alabama. We want you to change the program. You've been here before. Let's go win some national championships, and let's go ahead and get you as the face of the college football world. Because if he goes to, let's just say he goes to Alabama, they get back to where they were. They win a national title, maybe a couple of national titles in the next 2 to 5 years. I think that's something that Lane Kiffin again has always wanted. I think that's the reason why he went to Alabama, to be an assistant coach and help coach under Nick Saban before taking the job at Ole Miss. And I think he would be an amazing and tremendous head coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide to really bring that name back. But yeah, to kind of wrap everything up that I've just been saying, Alabama, more than anything, has lost its aura. They're getting beat down. I think they're going to have another 2 or 3 losses this season. This game is going to do against Florida State is going to do one of two things. Either they go and they fold and they quit on Kalen DeBoer, meaning the players, and they go out and lose a lot of games to get him fired, or this is what wakes them up and they go out and they win out the rest of the season. They make a deep playoff run and Kalen DeBoer keeps his job. But if you're asking me, it was very implementive of in this game against Florida State that they are just kind of quitting on the head coach. I've always believed that when you see no effort being given, that's kind of indicative of how you feel about the coaching staff. I'm saying as a player, as the coaching staff, about the coaching staff, about the head coach, and about everything that's been going on in the program. Because again, with Nick Saban there was no lack of effort, there was no lack of punishment, and there was no lack of physicality. And what I saw from the Alabama Crimson Tide defense against Florida State was they were soft and they were getting beaten down and they could not care less. I saw one of the linebackers for Alabama literally get lit up. You never used to see guys from Alabama getting lit up. It was the opposite way around. And so to see that, I mean, we'll see going forward. But that's kind of my take on it. I just wanted to give this video really quick because I thought it was an important video to talk about. But other than that, thank you guys so much for tuning into the channel. We're going to continue to have more content coming out weekly, hopefully like bi-daily, but we're going to continue to keep the content going. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.